I didn't do any research. I didn't know anything about vans. I came from the Eurovan, which basically had a Yeti cooler, a double burner stove, a minus 40 degree sleeping bag, and that's how I traveled. I got a bike rack and a cargo box for my skis and my bikes, and I made it work for 14 months. So I didn't have a clue.
Vanlifers know that a blank van is full of potential. It's also full of questions. Where do you start? What do you need? How do you turn a steel box into something that feels more like a home? Well, if you're Mike Lyons, you hand it off to professionals and document the entire process for us to follow along. Welcome to Mike's Van Build Podcast. Episode 1 starts now. Welcome to Mike's Van Build Podcast, where we follow Mike's journey from empty cargo van to custom adventure rig. I'm Jerem from Vanlife Outfitters, and we're breaking down a new phase of the project in every episode. The good, the bad, and the wow, I did not think of that. I'm here with Mike, one of our expert technical support team members at Vanlife Outfitters, who's starting over, building a new van from scratch, and taking us along for the ride. Mike, welcome.
Hey, Jerem. Glad to be here. Excited to share the adventure.
Thanks for taking us along your journey. But let's start farther back. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with van life.
Well, actually, van life for me started when I was a little kid. I mean, I'm talking maybe 3 or 4 years old. My folks immigrated from England, came to the land of opportunity. My dad was an electrician that worked with GE. We lived in a 67 VW camper bus.
VW, of course it was.
Way. Yep. And I don't know how many months we spent in that camper, but we'd find campgrounds close to an area where my dad was working. He'd go off and work during the day, and my brother and sister and I and my mom, we'd hang out at the VW at the campground. So yeah.
Full time?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
You guys were full time?
Yeah. My folks, we came in through Canada. We went to California, went to New York, and that's where my dad hooked up with GE. And I think it was a town called Canojoharie, and there was a campground there and some sort of GE plant close by. And so, like I said, my dad would go work, and we'd all hang at the campground in the VW bus.
What were some of your favorite things about living full-time in a van?
Hanging out at the campground, meeting all these other kids. I remember there being, I think of it as a lake. It was probably just this tiny little pond, but when you're a little kid, it looked like a lake. We'd ride our bikes around the campground. Mom had a double burner stove. Dad would come home at the end of the day. We'd maybe make burgers or something. And, we'd just get into mischief all day with the kids. There weren't cell phones. There weren't TVs in vans. You were just out having the blast, getting dirty, and living the van camper life.
That's fantastic. Yeah. You got started young. When was your next van? So you had that as a kid.
Yeah.
What was second?
Well, actually, my folks had a couple different VWs. One camper, and then a couple different, just sort of, 1, 2, like 8-seaters, whatever those VWs were called. And actually, a VW bus was my second car that I owned in high school. My first was an Opel, and my second was this a blue Volkswagen bus with a white top. And I used to load up all my buddies in there, and we'd go to the state park and hang out and cause trouble.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it wasn't really a camper, but it was still stayed in the VW world for a while.
Okay. So quite a few VWs growing up. And then you graduated from high school, went off to your regular life as an adult. Yeah. When did you come back to van life?
I think it was 2013. I had been working a number of different jobs. I was an outdoor education professor at UNC Chapel Hill. I was a music teacher back in the day. I used to teach telemark skiing, climbing. I had my own guide service, outdoor retail. And I had left the job at UNC. Unfortunately, my dad had got sick. And I had one of these moments is like, you know what? I don't want to wait and get a van and travel until I'm 70. And so I looked around and I found another Volkswagen This time it was
Of
it
course.
was a 2003 Volkswagen Eurovan weekender, which means
Yep.
it had a pop top. It didn't have the full kitchen. It had a fold out bed in the bottom. I added a couple swivel seats. It had a drop down table and this tiny little cooler that slid under the driver's seat. And I ended up living in that for about 14 months.
Full
Full
time.
time. Yep. Yep.
Nice, nice. We're gonna get as many pictures
Yeah.
from you as we can and get those here on the on YouTube so the audience can join along with
Yeah.
us. So that was a VW, and how long did you have it?
About 10 years. I put about 100,000 miles on it. I cruised around the country. Part of my goal when I got the van was not only to live the van life and just, I wanted to find somewhere new to live. I'd been Chapel Hill for 17 years. I moved to New Haven, Connecticut for a job doing customer service training for a big outdoor retailer. And that lasted 6 months. And the plan was, hey, my contract was give us 6 months. If it goes really well, we'll give you a nice bonus, and then you'll keep working for us. It went really well. I took the bonus and quit. So, because I bought the van, and I was like, sorry, guys, I've got other plans. So I hit the road in the Eurovan, had it for, like I said, about 10 years. I ended up landing in Breckenridge, Colorado. I met this wonderful woman named Amy in Denver, and we started traveling in the VW, which was named Althea. So we started going to music
Althea.
festivals. We started going on mountain bike trips and all kinds of stuff. And Althea was a blast for 10 years.
Did any of your vans growing up have names, or is that the first
No,
one?
that was the first one for me. I got in the van and I put some music on, and I'm a big Deadhead. And the first song that came out was Althea.
Oh yeah.
Ah, my van is now Althea. And so it worked out just wonderfully that the name fit the rig, and Althea was a champ.
So how did you end up getting rid of Althea?
Well, I actually did really well in the housing market. I had in the 10 years I had lived there, I bought a couple houses, some cabins. I spent hours renovating them because I was now learning to be a carpenter. I was a carpenter, and
You've lived kind of a boring life.
yeah, I go here, there.
You did like every job known to man.
25 years as a yoga instructor too. So Amy decided she wanted to go back to school and be a nurse. I don't know if that's a midlife crisis to want to go get a new career at 50 odd years old.
Since she might listen to this, let's say it's not.
So I had gone to, I started seeing sprinters everywhere, and maybe it was the COVID thing, and I would see the rebels and the
Yeah.
storytellers, and I was like, man, I'm going to sell Althea, and I'm going to get a sprinter. And I was like, I can't afford that. But like I said, I did well in the housing market. Sold a couple houses, like boom. I went to the Mercedes dealer and I bought a 2022 Mercedes Sprinter turbo diesel 6-cylinder van, just a complete empty metal shell. And I was like, I'm going to turn this puppy into a camper. And so that was my sort of venture into the Sprinter world. And van number two.
Nice. And what was it about sprinters that had you so enamored?
Oh, I just liked the way they looked. I was seeing them everywhere. They just looked big and tough. Uh, uh, yeah, just a visual thing. They were just really nice looking. And when I actually went to the dealer and drove one, I was like, oh, these actually drive really nice too. And so I was sold on the Mercedes Sprinter, and I bought the
Okay.
Sprinter. Once again, I put some music uh, in the Sprinter and another dead tune, and I hear "Wind in the Willow," and I was like, the van is Willow. So, Willow was my first Sprinter.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And how did you know what to do building out
I
Willow?
didn't. And a number of my friends have said, "Are you going to build that yourself? You're a carpenter." And I was like, you know what? I don't want to spend every night that I'm not doing carpentry or whatever I'm doing every weekend building a van. I mean, I had the skills. You have to sort of adapt your skills, even if you're a carpenter. I'd rather be out mountain biking or skiing or hiking, whatever. And so I happened to be looking at a magazine one day or online, and I saw this van. I was like, holy smokes, that thing is gorgeous. I'm going to contact that company and see if they could build me a van. I wonder what like something like that costs. And at the time, I had more money than brains. So I was like, hey, I don't care what it costs. I want one of those vans. And so I called the company and we talked on the phone. And the guy's like, yeah, I'll get back to you in a day or two. The day came and went. I called again. Oh, sorry. Give me another day. He never responded. As a customer service sort of person, that immediately told me I'm not working with these guys. So I was like, nah, not going to contact him. In the meantime, I saw another thing online of a van. I was like, wow, that's pretty gorgeous. Let me contact those guys. So I contact this company out in California named Ridgeline Vans. And I said, hey, I want to show you a picture of a van. Can you do this for me? And of course they said, yeah, we can do that for you. And I said, great. Let me just, get a little more things organized. And actually, I hadn't even bought the van yet. And I said, and I'll call you when I get my van. The guy's like, yeah, sure. Yeah. A lot of people say that to us. 2 weeks later, I called him back and said, well, I got my van. You guys ready to go? And he's like, you're kidding me, right? I was like, no, I didn't call you just for fun. I said, I want you to build me a van. And so, sure enough, that was the company that I chose based on looking at this beautiful picture of this van. It was kind of like a Scandinavian vibe, looked like a penthouse apartment. I said, whoo, I could see myself living in that. And hence the adventure began with this company having the van built. And I just said, I want you to build me that van. I don't want you to send me any pictures. I don't want to know what's going on. Just do it. So a month later, I drove across the country in the van and dropped it off. We picked out some, wood colors and a couple other things, and I just blindly said, "Okay, let me know when it's done," and that's it.
So that sounds fantastic. It sounds like the beginning of a dream van life. But here we are only 3 years later, 3 years or so later. So why are you doing it all over again?
Well, it's actually kind of funny because I picked up the van, and Amy and I flew out. My wife Amy, my new wife, and we flew out, and oh, it was beautiful. We got in and we had to drive to Target to get some sheets and stuff. Within 10 miles, I'm talking about things I would have done differently.
No.
And Amy's like, "You're kidding me. We just picked this thing up." And I say, "Yeah, I know." And like I said, I didn't do any research. I didn't know anything about vans. I came from the Eurovan, which basically had I had a Yeti cooler, a double burner stove, a minus 40-degree sleeping bag, and I made it work for 14 months. So I didn't have a clue. And interestingly enough, after I dropped it off, a month or so later, I started looking on websites and looking at what people were doing and building. I was like, I didn't talk about my electrical system. I don't know about what kind of fridge I'm getting. You know, I have solar, and so I called them and said, "Hey, you guys, what are you guys doing on my van?" And they're like, "Oh, we're going to do this, this," and it's like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "So you guys know how to do that?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah." And interestingly enough, the guys that started that did the van, it was a father and two sons that were high-end kitchen cabinet makers, and
Okay.
they would build cabinets for houses in Aspen, Colorado, like multi-million-dollar homes. I come to find out that a house in Colorado sold for $100 million, and these guys did all the cabinetry in there. And so, sure enough, their cabinetry work in this van was just next level. Anytime a builder stepped inside, they're like, holy smokes, we've never seen a van finished like this. But I went in with it blind. I trusted that they were going to put whatever in it that I thought I needed, or I didn't even ask them what I wanted. And sure enough, after I got in the van, like I said, within an hour, I was already making changes. And so it worked. I loved it, but I realized I'm going to sell this because I have to have something different. and and hence the idea of getting a second van. The other thing that motivated that is I actually started working with Vanlife Outfitters, and I went in as a customer service person. And in doing that, I was forced to learn about van products. I can tell you about climbing gear, telemark ski gear, camping gear. And I said to the guys, Zach and Josh, I said, once I learn your product, I'm sure I can represent. And so in learning all about these products, I was like, yeah, I need to build another van.
Now I know.
I got to get rid of this van because I got a different idea and I'm going to be 100% instrumental in making this van exactly the kind of van I want.
So now, presumably, you have a little bit of money and some
Yeah.
brains.
Well, let's not go that far. A little bit of money.
Some brains, little brains. So, what were some of the top of mind things for you that Willow wasn't doing that this next one you hope will do for you?
Well, like I said, Willow was gorgeous. I mean, it was just beautiful woodwork. Again, it had that sort of Scandinavian aesthetic. It was so nice. It was too nice for me. You know, I wanted to be able to throw my bike in or my skis in or spill some pasta on the
Oh,
wall. And so I, I wanted something a little more industrial. It was kind of, monochromatic, beautiful wood. I wanted some more texture. I wanted some different fabrics in it, different materials. And like I said, when working at Vanlife Outfitters, I started to talk to Josh and Zach about their vans. And I was like, wow, there's a lot to learn about electrical systems. I want to go off grid for 5, 7, 10 days. I want to go to festivals. I need a bigger battery bank. I need different ways to charge the batteries. I might want a bigger refrigerator. Do I really need a toilet? Do I want a shower? And so I began to sort of research. And like I said, I was forced to learn the products that other people were searching to put in their vans. And that allowed me to decide, okay, I'm going to be really instrumental in thinking this through, how I'm going to use the van, and what are those things in the van are going to allow me to really enjoy it. And so that's what I was now bringing to the table when I was thinking, I'm going to sell Willow, I'm going to buy another van, and I'm going to find another company to do the build for me. Because again, I didn't want to be building every night. I didn't want to be doing that kind of stuff. I wanted to find someone else to do the build for me.
and how did you find Site 7, who's doing your build? Maybe tell us a little bit about them.
I happened to go to a couple van festivals when I started working with Vanlife Outfitters. And one of the van festivals I went to was in Chattanooga, and Site 7 was there. They're based in Chattanooga. And I was like, hey, I'm walking around. Let me go look in their vans. And I stepped in one of their vans and was like, holy shit, this is it. This is the kind of van I want. It had, beautiful cabinets, but it had metal. It had tweed fabric. It had a really cool layout. The exterior mods were nice, but they weren't over the top. And I was like, when I'm ready, I'm going to call these guys and I want them to build my van. And of course, I talked to them there and I said, how long does it take to build one? What kinds of things do you put in them? If I came to you with a bunch of ideas, could you do it for me? And they're like, sure, yeah, we could do that for you. So initially, just like when I saw that picture, it was stepping into that van and having been in Willow and driven around and camped out for a year or so. I was like, this is it. This is the vibe I want. These are the materials I like. And when I looked at it real closely, I was like, these guys got it going on. This is nice work. And as a former carpenter, I see things that the average person doesn't see. So I'm looking behind things like, oh, they actually finished the back here. They actually did that. It's like, that's nice. So I was sold on them. And I said to them, one of these days, guys, I'm going to sell my van over here. And they're like, let's look at your van. Ooh, that's really nice. Why do you want to sell it? And I said, well, because I want you guys to build me a van. And so that's how it came about that I went with Site 7. And so sure enough, Willow sold. And I went on the search for a new Sprinter. And the next van that they're building for me is a 2024 all-wheel drive 140 Sprinter. It's the diesel turbo 4-cylinder. It's in this really cool color called it's either pebble gray or stone gray. And so I went and bought the van, and just like I did with those other guys, I said, Hey, Justin, it's Mike at Vanlife Outfitters. Remember we talked about you building me a van? Well, I got a van. Do you want to build it? And they're like, sure, let's talk vans. And so,
That's That's fantastic. One of the first decisions people have to make, maybe the first decision after they decide to get a van, is which
right.
van. So you've talked a little bit about
Yeah.
Mercedes, and they're obviously a really popular option. There are a couple other popular options as well. What are some of the reasons people might choose something other than a Mercedes?
Well, I mean, what we commonly hear at Van Life Outfitters is people have either a Ford Transit, a Ram ProMaster, or a Sprinter. I think dimensionally, each van has some different dimensions. Maybe I think the Transit may be a little taller, the ProMaster a little wider. So I think, like I said, in terms of dimensions, each van is slightly different. Um, I went with the Sprinter because I just loved the way it looked. German engineering, Mercedes. It's got that badge on there, and it drives beautifully. So that's the choice I made. Um, so I think there are the big three, like I said, the Transit, the ProMaster, the Sprinter. I think there might be a benefit or an advantage with the Transit or the ProMaster, in that if you're traveling around the country, it's real easy to find a Ford dealer or Bob's Mechanics in Idaho that can work on a Ford or a ProMaster. It's a little harder to find a Mercedes mechanics. Mercedes are a little more expensive to work on. And so that's the one thing, the one reservation I had was, what if I am out in South Dakota and something goes? I'm going to need to find a dealer. And what I've found already is that dealers are backed up for months with Sprinters. They've actually opened sections of their dealership that's Sprinter service. So that's how popular they are. So that would be my only concern, whether it's in South Dakota or Maine. If something goes on the Sprinter, am I going to be stuck? Whereas a Ford or a Ram, there's a lot more dealers, there's a lot more mechanics, I think, that are skilled in working on those particular vehicles.
Well, thanks for getting a plug in for our sponsor, Bob's
Yeah.
Mechanic in Idaho. They'll be excited about that. Well, we want to end each episode with lessons learned. So, as you're thinking about the planning
Yeah.
stage, what are one or two primary takeaways that you would share with others who are also planning to build a camper van?
Two real important things. Number one, how do you want to use your van? Are you going to be a weekend warrior that goes to the KOA, or a weekend warrior that goes to the climbing crag where there's no electrical hookup? Are you going to go for 10 days, 2 weeks? Really think about how you want to use that van, because that will dictate what else is going to go in the van. Um, Think about what you want. What luxuries, what creature comforts do you want in the van? Do you want a refrigerator, a stove, a heater, an air conditioner, or a fan, a big screen TV, an air fryer, a blow dryer, a cappuccino machine? That again is going to lead you to figuring out what I think is probably one of the more important pieces of the build is your electrical system. And again, those are the things that I didn't consider before I knew I had to consider those things. Uh, and so you can do that by YouTubing. You can do that by calling Van Life Outfitters saying, "Hey, Mike, I just bought a Transit. Um, I want to do this, this, and this. What do you suggest?" And the wonderful thing about Van Life Outfitters is we're all into making suggestions about what we potentially would use, and if it overlaps with your use, because we use this stuff. We buy it, we try it. If we like it, you might see it on the website. So I'm plugging Van Life Outfitters, but everything you see on the site is in my van. It's in Zach's vans, Josh's vans, and hundreds of other people's vans around the country. So really do your research. Think about how you want to use your van, and then you know uh, have good questions to ask when you call. Someone said to me, "What size refrigerator should I get?" I was like, "I don't know. How much food do you eat? you know, how long do you want to refrigerate food for? How long before you go to the grocery store next time? What size water tank should I have?" I can get away with showering once a week, but if you shower twice a day, you're going to need a big old tank. I didn't have a heater in Althea. I had a really good sleeping bag. I didn't have an air conditioner in Willow. I'm going to have one in the new van, and the new van is Neve. I'm pretty much 100% sure that's the name I'm going to go with. It's a French word for snow. But now that the country is just heating up everywhere, even when you're in Colorado in the middle of August, it could be 95 degrees, especially if you're mountain biking in Fruta or you're mountain biking in Moab. So, think about how you want to use the van, do your research.
Would you think it's very important for them to actually spend a few weekends in a van? It seems like
Yeah.
they might not actually
Yeah.
know how they're going to use it until they've done it
Yeah,
a few
yeah, good
times.
point. Go rent a van. There are now rental companies that rent Sprinters and ProMasters. Go drive one around. Go to a festival. Go camping. Bring your dog with you. How big of an air conditioner do you need to keep your dog cool while you're hiking? Because the park won't let you have a dog in there. But yeah, it's a great place. Fortunately for me, I had been in a couple of VWs. I just decided the Sprinter was great for me. One of the things Amy and I used to do when we're driving around in the Volkswagen van is I was like, "Hey, bub, could you go get some hummus and carrots so we can have a snack?" And she'd hunch over and walk to my little Yeti cooler and walk to the front. I was like, "Wouldn't it be nice if you could just stand up and walk to the fridge and make some sandwiches and come sit back down?" And so that was the other beauty of the Sprinter. While I'm driving for 10 hours, Amy will go get some chips and salsa. We'll set it up on a little table and woo, we're cruising down the highway. So yeah, if you try a van, that will, you'll see quickly what comforts you may want in your van. I mean, you don't need anything really. Like I said, you could build a van with some 2x4s, plywood, a futon, a sleeping bag, and a cooler. Um, and I did that, but now there's some things I want. I want some comforts. I want to get to the campground, and if I want to watch Netflix and pop popcorn on my stove, I can do that. Or if I want to break out the Barbie and put some shrimp on it, it's all right there. And look at me doing the dishes as I'm looking out the window at the poor person in the tent. I've grown out of tent life. I'm now a van lifer.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, I am really excited to be able to go along the
Yeah.
journey with you and appreciate you sharing it with us. I can't wait for the next episode. In fact, in that episode, we're going to talk about Mike's shopping spree at Vanlife
Oh,
Outfitters. He
yeah.
got free reign at the warehouse to load up on gear for his new build.
Well, let's
And I'm really
clarify.
excited to
Let's
learn about
clarify.
that.
I didn't get free products.
Free reign, not free products.
All right.
Sorry,
Now
Mike.
I'm psyched for the next episode because I got some great products. Van Life
I can't
Outfitters,
wait to hear
baby.
about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to episode 1 of Mike's Van Build podcast. Photos, links, and product info from this episode are all up at vanlifeoutfitters.com/podcast. Subscribe, tell a friend, and buckle up. This build is just getting started. I'm Jarom from Van Life Outfitters. We'll see you next time. Our sponsor, Bob's Mechanic in Idaho,